They say redemption isn't found in grand gestures or epic apologies. It's stitched slowly, painfully, into the fabric of quiet mornings, shared coffee, and eyes that forgive without saying a word. Jack Callahan used to believe he had purpose, a man built of strength, duty, and a little bit of adrenaline. He was a firefighter for 16 years, respected by his crew, loved, or at least he thought so, by his wife, and known by just about every face in Portland's Station 9. But all it took was one fire, one little girl, one locked door he couldn't break fast enough, and the man he'd been just crumbled like the house they carried her out of. He remembered the heat, blistering, alive, like it had a grudge against every soul in that building. Smoke thick like molasses, screaming. Radios, his captain's voice yelling over the static. "Pull back, Jack! That floor's gonna give!" But he didn't. Not until the screams stopped. After the funeral, after the interviews and press statements, after Rachel packed up her half of the closet in silence, he left the city. No more sirens. No more morning briefings. No more mirrors. That's how he ended up in Maplewood, a town of barely 2,000 nestled in the pines of Oregon's Cascade Mountains. The kind of place with a single gas station, a diner that doubled as a town hall, and Sunday sermons where everyone showed up even if they didn't believe in much anymore. He took the job at the high school because it didn't require much talking. The janitor/maintenance guy role was offered by old Mr. Green, his former principal, with a handshake and a look that said, "We all screw up, son." Now, 3 years later, Jack's daily routine ran like clockwork. 5 on a.m., feed. Toby, his graying German Shepherd mix and only real friend. 6 on a.m., coffee, black, from Gracie's table, the town's only diner. 7 on a.m., check boilers, mop hallways, repair leaky sinks. 3 p.m. Home, walk Toby, watch nothing on TV, sleep, repeat. He didn't talk much, didn't need to. People in town were polite, in that small-town way of nodding without asking questions. The students mostly ignored him, except the occasional, "Hey, Mr. C," from the more polite ones. He preferred it that way. Until her Emily Grace Bennett blew into town with wind chimes in her hair and paint under her nails. At least that's how Jack first described her to himself after seeing her in the faculty parking lot, struggling to carry 2 crates of art supplies while balancing a coffee on one knee. He watched from the maintenance shed, chewing on a granola bar. "Not your problem," he muttered. Toby, sitting beside him, gave a soft woof, ears perked. Jack sighed. "Don't look at me like that." But he crossed the lot anyway. "Need a hand?" he asked, already grabbing one of the crates before she could say yes or no. Emily looked up, startled, then smiled, the kind of smile that didn't feel forced. Wow, a real live gentleman. Thought those were extinct. Jack grunted. "Just a guy with a free hand." "I'm Emily," she said, brushing hair out of her face. "New art teacher. First day." "Jack," he replied. "Fix things." They walked in silence until they reached her classroom. The walls were bare. The smell of new paint hung in the air. He set the crate down gently and turned to leave. "Thanks, Jack," she said softly. He nodded, and that should have been it. But it wasn't. It started with small things. A wave in the hallway. A thank you sticky note with a hand-drawn flower. A mug of coffee left for him on the janitor's cart with his name on a tag. Then came the day she locked herself out of her classroom. "I swear I'm not always this chaotic," she said, cheeks red. "But can you pick locks too?" Jack shook his head and pulled out the master key. "Don't need to." She laughed, a musical, unpolished thing that lingered. Later that week, she showed up at Gracie's table, the diner Jack visited, every morning. She took the booth across from him without asking. "Are you always this quiet?" she asked. "Or is it just around people with paint-stained hands?" He looked up from his eggs. "I talk." She grinned. So it's just selective. Jack raised an eyebrow. You're not from here. Guilty, she said, sipping from a chipped mug. LA born and raised. What brings you to Maplewood? Emily's smile faltered. Just a flicker. Needed a new story. Jack understood that, more than she knew. That winter came early. By mid-November, snow dusted the pines and made the roads slick. Jack spent more time salting sidewalks than fixing sinks. The kids at school built crooked snowmen and threw poorly aimed snowballs. Emily started wearing oversized scarves and drinking peppermint lattes. She told him she hated the cold, but loved how it made everything quiet. I've never been this quiet, she said one morning, standing beside him outside the school, breath fogging. It's kind of nice. Jack handed her a thermos. Coffee. Black, like his. She took it, smiled, and for the first time, he let himself smile back. That night, Jack found himself lying awake, Toby snoring on the floor beside him. He stared at the ceiling, wondering why her voice had stuck with him, why her laugh felt like something he used to believe in. He thought of the fire, the little girl's face, then Emily's eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, the memory didn't burn quite as sharp. It was a Tuesday when the storm came. Maplewood wasn't a town known for extremes. It rained, it snowed, it got gray for months at a time. But real storms, the kind that shut down highways and cracked trees like twigs, came maybe once every few years. This one came angry. Sudden wind, sleet, ice thick like glass sheets across the roads. By 4:15 p.m., school was closed early, and the town's emergency alerts were buzzing every local phone. Roads may be impassable after 6 p.m. Shelter in place advised. Jack was halfway through checking the heating pipes in the basement when his phone buzzed, a message from Principal Avery. Emily Bennett stuck on campus. Car won't start. Can you help? Jack grunted. Toby, curled up by the radiator, lifted his head at the sound. Yeah, I know, Jack said. The art teacher. Emily was outside her car, kicking one of the tires with a fury that was half frustration, half stubborn, denial. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her scarf looked like it was slowly strangling her. Jack pulled up in his truck and rolled down the window. Pop the hood. She turned, surprised. Then relief spread across her face. Jack! Oh, thank God. He got out, peered under the hood for about 2 seconds and said, Battery's dead. She sighed, breath puffing out in clouds. I left the lights on, didn't I? Yep. I hate everything. Jack smirked slightly. Get in. I'll drive you. To my place? Or, your place is 25 minutes away, he said, glancing at the dark clouds thickening above. You're not making it. Come to mine. Roads'll ice soon. Emily blinked. Oh, you're offering to take me home? Jack shrugged. Safer than you staying here or freezing in that tin can of a car. She hesitated. Just for a second. Then, okay, I trust you. That sentence, so casually said, landed like a stone in Jack's chest. It had been a long, long time since someone said that and meant it. His cabin sat a few miles past the main road, tucked in the edge of a pine, clearing like something out of a Hallmark postcard. Small, weather-beaten, wood-burning stove puffing smoke from a metal chimney. Lights warm, not bright. Quiet. Toby barked excitedly as they pulled up, his tail thumping the door. You live in a Christmas card, Emily said, stepping inside, stomping snow off her boots. This place is perfect. Jack tossed her a pair of wool socks. Try these. You'll feel your toes again. She laughed and dropped onto the couch like it was already home. Jack made chili, the same way he made it every week, thick, spicy, loaded with beans. Emily offered to help and ended up just sitting on the counter, sipping cider and watching him. So, she said. "What's your story?" Jack stirred the pot. "Which one? The one that made you so quiet?" He didn't answer right away. Emily didn't push. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't awkward. It was familiar, like the sound of someone breathing beside you after a long day. Finally, he said, "I used to be a firefighter." Emily nodded slowly. "Figured it was something like that. You've got that protector vibe." He didn't smile. "I lost a kid." The air shifted. Not tense, just heavier. She was 5, trapped in a closet. Fire was too fast. I couldn't. He trailed off, staring into the bubbling pot. Emily slid off the counter, moved closer, rested a hand gently on his arm. "Jack," she said softly, "you don't have to finish." "I can't stop finishing it. Every damn night." Her hand didn't move. After a moment, she whispered, "I was engaged 2 years ago. Guy was a lawyer, charming, sharp, good with people. Too good. Turns out I was number 3 in a line of exclusive girlfriends. When I caught him, he told me it was my fault for being too trusting." Jack looked at her. "Broke me," she said. "Made me question everything. I stopped painting for a year. Couldn't look at myself. Why Maplewood? My grandma, Martha, owns Gracie's table. Told me to come here, start over." Jack blinked. "Martha's your grandma?" "She makes the world's worst meatloaf," Emily said, grinning. "Don't tell her I said that." Jack chuckled. A real one this time. They ate on the couch, chili warming their hands. Toby curled up like a furry blanket by their feet. Later, as the storm howled and sleet tapped against the window panes, they sat in silence, shoulder to shoulder, a blanket tossed casually across both of them. Emily spoke first. "Jack? Yeah, can I ask something kind of bold?" He turned to her. "Do you ever think broken people can make each other whole?" Jack thought about it. "No," he said slowly. "But I think they can help each other heal." She nodded, eyes glassy, but not crying. "That's enough for me." That night, Emily slept in the guest room. Toby stood guard outside her door. Jack lay awake longer than usual, but the memories didn't burn as bright. By morning, the world had turned to glass. Icicles hung from the eaves like crystal daggers. The trees bowed under the weight of snow, and the roads vanished into white. Maplewood was still, frozen, but inside Jack's cabin, the fire crackled, and the smell of coffee drifted warmly through the air. Emily padded into the kitchen, wearing one of Jack's oversized flannel shirts and thick socks. Her hair was a tangle of sleep, but her eyes were bright. "It's like Narnia out there." Jack looked up from the stove, where he was flipping pancakes. "Hope you like blueberries." "I'll eat anything as long as it comes with syrup and sarcasm." He gave her the smallest of smirks. It was becoming more common now. Not forced. Not guarded. Toby wagged his tail at her, clearly having chosen sides. They ate together at the small wooden table by the window, watching the snow fall and laughing about a mouse Emily had mistaken for a ghost in the night. When the power blinked off mid-coffee, Jack didn't panic. He simply stood, grabbed a lantern, and said, "Welcome to rural Oregon." "Do I get a merit badge?" Emily asked, holding her mug like a prize. "You get to help chop wood later." Her face fell. "This is abuse." The storm passed by late afternoon. Jack drove Emily back to her house slowly, tires crunching over slush. The moment she stepped out of the truck, she turned and looked at him, biting her lip. "Thanks for not making that weird," she said. He tilted his head. It's supposed to be weird," Emily grinned. Most men I've known would have taken a snowstorm and turned it into a relationship. Or a disaster. Jack's voice was quiet. I'm not most men. She looked at him, and something soft passed between them. Unspoken, but understood. No, she said, you're not. The next few weeks unfolded like pages in a quiet novel. They didn't rush. No declarations. No late-night confessions. Just time, layered in snow, art supplies, and small kindnesses. Jack started dropping by her classroom during his rounds. Sometimes he'd fix a loose chair leg. Sometimes he just stood in the back while she taught, watching her coax beauty out of shy teenagers and blank canvases. She invited him to help with the school's Winter Arts Festival, a tradition she'd taken over from a retiring music teacher. Jack said no at first. Crowds weren't his thing. But Emily had a way of asking that didn't feel like asking. It felt like trusting. So he showed up. They spent a Saturday hanging string lights, painting cardboard snowflakes, and laughing about glitter that refused to leave their skin. At one point, Emily slipped and almost fell off a ladder. Jack caught her by the waist. For a long second, they didn't move. Her eyes searched his face. His hand lingered just a moment too long. But he let go, not yet, not like this. At the festival, Jack stood by the cocoa stand in his old navy peacoat, watching Emily guide a group of kids through an art auction. Her laugh rose above the music. Her joy was infectious. Martha, Emily's grandmother, sidled, up beside him. She's different, huh? Jack didn't look away. She's something. Martha sipped from her thermos. She's healing. You are too. Jack nodded. I'm just saying. Martha added casually. You break her heart. I will bury you under the diner. Jack blinked, then laughed, loud and honest. Martha just winked and walked away. That night, Jack and Emily ended up at the edge of Maplewood Lake, where the snow turned to mist and stars cut through the dark sky like diamonds. She leaned on his shoulder. I don't remember the last time I felt still. Jack watched the way the moonlight touched her hair. I don't remember the last time I wasn't running, he said quietly. They stood like that for a long while. No kiss, no promise. Just breath shared in cold air, hearts thawing together. Week later, Jack knocked on her door just after sunset. Emily opened it, startled. Everything okay? He didn't answer right away. Then he pulled something from behind his back, a canvas. On it, a painting. A woman standing on a snowy hill, looking out over a town. The sky above her was cracked open with starlight, and, in the distance, a man walked toward her, holding a lantern. Her hands went to her mouth. Jack, you painted this? I tried. It's not much. It's everything. She looked up at him. He stepped closer. I want to try, he said. I don't know if I'll be good at it, loving someone again. But I want to try. With you. Emily didn't cry. She just pulled him inside and whispered, Then let's try together. By March, the snow had melted into memory. Maplewood was waking up, slow and sleepy. The pines dripped with thaw. Driveways revealed gravel. Again, and the sun, though shy, stayed longer in the sky each evening. Jack had never liked spring. It always felt like false hope, a trick of warmth before another cold snap. But this year, it felt different, lighter, like possibility. He and Emily had settled into something real, not fast, not fiery, just steady. They didn't use words like boyfriend or girlfriend out loud, but she kissed him before staff meetings now. He made her tea in the mornings. She hung one of his paintings, his third ever, in her classroom. There were rules, boundaries, no sleeping over on school nights, no pushing past each other's silences, and one unspoken pact. Be honest, even when it hurts. That part was the hardest. It started with the gallery invite. Emily was being featured in a local spring showcase in Bend, 3 hours away, and one of her pieces, a mixed media canvas of grief and rebirth, had caught a curator's attention. Jack found the invitation on her kitchen counter. "Big deal?" he asked, holding it up. Emily was washing dishes, sleeves rolled up to her elbows. "Kind of. I used to dream about getting into shows like this. Before LA?" he offered. She nodded. "Before I stopped thinking my work mattered." Jack looked at the invite again. "Want me to go with you?" "I'd love that," she said, drying her hands. Then she hesitated. "But I think I should do it alone." Jack blinked. "Oh." "Not because I don't want you there," she said quickly. "I do. But I need to know I can stand in that room again. Alone. Confident. Unafraid." Jack understood. Too well. "That makes sense." She touched his arm. "Next time we go together." That same weekend, Jack did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He drove back to Portland. The cemetery sat on a quiet hill, just off 82nd Avenue, past the freeway. He hadn't told Emily where he was going. Some things needed to be faced in silence. He parked his truck and walked. No flowers. No apology rehearsed. He found her stone easily. Camilla Jane Ruiz, 2013, 2019. Our brightest light. There were small pinwheels stuck in the soil. A faded plush unicorn. A drawing in crayon, probably from a sibling. Jack sat down. For a long time, he said nothing. Then softly, "I should have gotten to you sooner." A breeze passed through the trees. "I carried you for so long. I thought if I let go, it'd mean you didn't matter. But you do. You still do." He closed his eyes. "I want to be more than the man who lost you." "Somewhere," a bird called out, bright and defiant. Jack stood, wiped his face, and whispered, "Thank you for changing me." Then he walked back to the truck, lighter than he had come. Emily returned from Bend with flushed cheeks and new energy. "It was good," she told him, curled up on his couch that night. "People saw me, like really saw me." Jack kissed the top of her head. "I always do." She smiled. "I know." Then she pulled a flyer from her bag. "They offered me a summer residency." Jack paused. "Where?" "Santa Fe. 8 weeks, all paid, a studio, a show at the end." He felt something tighten in his chest. "That's amazing," he said. "You mean that?" "Yeah." A beat. "When would you go?" "Mid-June." Another beat. Jack nodded slowly. "You should do it. I don't want to leave you." "You're not. You're just growing." Emily looked at him then. Really looked. "And you?" He took a deep breath. "I'm learning how to stay." They made a plan. She'd go. He'd visit halfway through. They'd write, call. Let the space between them test what they'd built. In May, they planted a small garden behind her house. Tomatoes, basil, wildflowers. Jack dug in the dirt while Emily sang quietly, off-key. Toby barked at a bee and fell into the flower bed. They laughed so hard Jack had to sit down. When he looked at her, hair messy, hands dirty, eyes shining, he thought, this is what healing looks like. Not perfect, not finished, but alive. The night before she left, they had dinner at Gracie's table. Martha served them grilled salmon and extra garlic bread, and gave Jack a look that said, "You better not screw this up." Afterward, they walked by the lake, the same path where they once stood in silence, afraid to want more. Now they held hands. Emily stopped. "Promise me something?" "Anything. Don't stop painting. Even when I'm gone." Jack kissed her forehead. "Don't stop believing in second chances." When she drove away the next morning, Jack stood on the porch with Toby, watching, until her car disappeared around the bend. He didn't cry. He just breathed. Because spring doesn't rush. It arrives quietly, stubbornly, like love that doesn't demand attention, but stays and grows and waits for the right moment to bloom. July. In Santa Fe was a kind of beautiful Jack had never experienced, not directly anyway. He could only picture it through Emily's words. "There's a kind of dry magic here," she wrote in her first letter. "The sun doesn't just shine. It reveals things. People walk slower. They look you in the eye. I paint for 6 hours, straight and still want more. Every few days another letter arrived, always handwritten, always imperfect, but real. She never signed them Love, Emily. Instead, yours in whatever this is becoming. Missing your quiet. Tell Toby he owes me 1 bee sting." Jack kept every letter in a shoebox in his closet. He didn't write back every time, not on paper. He wasn't built for long confessions or flowing ink, but he sent photos of the garden, of Toby covered in dirt, of the little wooden bench he built in her backyard. Once, he just sent a drawing, a pencil sketch of her silhouette by the lake, eyes closed, wind in her hair. No words. She called him crying after that one. At the firehouse, things had changed. Jack wasn't ready to go back full-time, and no one asked him to. But one of the newer volunteers, Marco, had heard about Jack's history and invited him to lead a couple of drills. Just show the kids how you used to run a roof breach. The first day Jack's hands shook, but muscle memory kicked in, and soon he was explaining techniques he hadn't used in years, laughing at dumb jokes, even staying late to fix gear. Captain Reyes pulled him aside afterward. "You're not who you were before," he said, "but that's not a bad thing." Jack just nodded. Sometimes you don't go back. Sometimes you build forward. By mid-July, the distance started to ache. It wasn't just miles. It was that strange quiet between messages, those gaps between calls. Jack tried to stay patient. He knew she was chasing something big. But some nights, the silence roared louder than the thunder ever did. One Thursday, she missed their usual evening call. No text. No voicemail. Jack didn't panic. Not at first, but when she still hadn't replied by the next afternoon, doubt crept in. He sat on his porch with Toby, staring at his phone, thinking too hard. Maybe she met someone. Maybe the freedom reminded her she didn't need the weight of someone else's grief. He almost drove to the post office just to see if a letter was waiting. Instead, he waited. On Sunday night, her name finally lit up his screen. He answered instantly. "Emily?" She sounded exhausted. "Hey, I'm sorry." "What happened?" "I had a panic attack," she admitted. "At the gallery, one of the judges asked me to explain the story behind my piece, the one about betrayal, and suddenly, I couldn't breathe." Jack's voice softened. "You should have called me." "I know. I wanted to. But I kept thinking, what if you heard the fear in my voice and realized I haven't healed at all?" He was silent a moment, then said, "Healing doesn't mean never hurting again. It means knowing who to call when you do." Emily's breath hitched. "I love you," she whispered. "I think I've known for a while, but I was scared to say it first." Jack exhaled, slow and full. "I've been loving you since that snowstorm, and just like that." The space between them shrank. 2 weeks later, He visited her in Santa Fe. The heat hit him like a wall, dry and sharp. But when he saw her at the airport, all he felt was relief. She ran into his arms, laughing and crying all at once. They didn't talk much that first hour, just walked hand in hand through adobe streets and galleries that smelled of turpentine and sage. That night, they sat on her rooftop and watched the stars rise. Jack handed her something, a small box. Inside, a key. "To my house," he said. "For whenever you're ready." She looked at him, blinking back tears. "Not rushing you," he added. "Just showing you the doors open." Emily held the key like it was a promise. When the residency ended in August, she came home. Back to Maplewood. Back to her classroom. Back to him. They didn't move in together right away. Still had their own places, their own rhythms. But weekends bled into weekdays. Jack left coffee in her fridge. She kept a toothbrush at his. One night in September, they hosted a backyard dinner. Mismatched chairs, fairy lights, mason jars, full of iced tea and candles. Martha made pies. Marco brought ribs. Students wandered in, hugged Emily, called her Miss B. Jack caught her looking around the yard at one point, eyes wide, like she couldn't believe it was all hers. Okay?" he asked. She smiled. "Yeah, just, I used to think broken people didn't get this kind of life." Jack touched her cheek. "Maybe we don't get it the way we expect, but we build it. One stubborn, hopeful day at a time." October came with gold in the trees and cool in the wind. In Maplewood, it meant hayrides, pumpkin patches, and kids squealing in leaves. For Jack and Emily, it meant something else. Change knocking again. It started with an email. Emily sat on Jack's porch, wrapped in his old hoodie, staring at her, phone like it had personally betrayed her. "They offered me the position," she said quietly. Jack looked up from the firewood he was stacking. "The one at the Portland Art Institute?" She nodded. "Gallery director, full-time, good money, and exposure." He wiped his hands on a towel and joined her. "What do you want to do?" "That's the problem. I don't know." He didn't push, just sat beside her, letting the silence settle. "It's everything I used to dream about," she said. "But the idea of leaving you," Jack exhaled. "If you want to go, go." Emily looked at him. "That's not what I needed to hear." He paused, then said carefully, "I love you, Em. But I won't be the reason you play small." She stared at the hills beyond the porch, then back at him. "And what if I don't want big anymore? What if this small town, messy garden, man with a past, is the life I didn't know I wanted?" He didn't smile. He didn't cry, he just said, "Then stay." Meanwhile, Jack faced his own crossroads. Captain Reyes offered him a permanent spot again, not on the front lines, too many physical limitations now, but as a field trainer, part-time. "New recruits need someone who's seen the worst and come back from it," Reyes said. Jack wanted to say yes, but the fear still lingered, not of fire, but of failing again. Emily watched him wrestle with it. "You're allowed to want things," she told him one night. "Even dangerous things. You're not broken, Jack. You're rebuilt." That word stuck in his chest. Rebuilt. Not what he was, but what he'd become. He took the job. They didn't make any huge announcements. No social media posts. No sweeping. Speeches. But in late November, Jack gave Emily a drawer. In December, she gave him a studio key. By Christmas, her toothbrush lived next to his razor. Her plants took over his windowsills. And his dog slept on her feet every night. They never said, "We moved in together." It just happened, like the slow unfurling of spring. One night, curled together under a patchwork quilt, Emily whispered, "Did you ever think we'd make it here?" Jack didn't answer right away. Then, "I didn't think I'd make it at all." She kissed his jaw. "We're not who we were." "No," he agreed. "We're who we had to become." The following summer they traveled, not far, just weekend road trips. Crater Lake, the coast, a cabin in Idaho where the stars looked close enough to touch. Emily sketched again, not for work, but for joy. Jack kept painting, mostly for her, messy, heartfelt images that showed more than he ever could in words. On their second trip, while hiking along a quiet ridge, Emily turned to him, heart racing, and said, "Let's not wait anymore." He blinked. "Wait for what?" She smiled. "Marriage, forever, whatever this is. I don't need a big moment. I just want you." Jack stared at her, breath caught. Then gently, "You sure?" She nodded. "We've already done the hard parts." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small ring box. She gasped. "What?" "I've had this for 6 months," he said. "Was waiting for the right time." Emily laughed, cried, and shouted yes, all at once. They got married in Martha's backyard. 30 guests, string lights, Toby in a bow tie. Jack wore his dress uniform. Emily wore bare feet and a vintage dress with pockets. They read their own vows. No one had a dry eye, especially not Martha, who gave a toast that ended with, "Took you both long enough." There was no honeymoon, just the porch. The lake. The quiet knowing that they had come through fire and storm. Not unchanged, but unbroken. Years later, their story wouldn't be told in viral posts or Hallmark movies, but in the lives they touched. The students Emily inspired. The firefighters Jack mentored. The strangers who walked past their house and saw a woman painting on the porch while a dog snored in the sun, and a man in flannel brought her coffee. Because real love, the kind born from broken hearts and healing souls, doesn't always look like fireworks. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness. Sometimes it sounds like silence shared without fear. And sometimes it feels like coming home after thinking you never would.